Thank you so much, Dr. McCarty, and thank you to the RTI team for participating with us on this our June research seminar. So TCRDF is a research and development foundation of 501c3. We were formed as an assistant to Tougaloo College. We were known as Tougaloo College Research and Development Foundation, but our name is now simply TCRDF. We exist to literally help Tougaloo College and other emerging research institutions expand their engagement with the federal sector and with the private sector. And the way we do that is by forming and supporting research and contract partnerships between emerging research institutions and those firms doing a significant amount of work with the federal government. That includes R1 institutions, university affiliated research centers, and federal contractors. And it also includes the federal labs. So for our RTI friends, the audience today consists of HBCUs, other emerging research institutions. We have some of our other partners on the call, including Georgia Tech, which is a good partner of ours. Georgia Tech Research Institute is here. Florida State is on the call, as well as Purdue. There may be others. And there are a number of HBCUs and HBCU four-year institutions and HBCU community colleges. I guess those are HBCC, HB, historically Black community colleges. That's the way we say that one. So we're grateful to have them all here. RTI is an international research and development firm based in North Carolina. They do a significant amount of work with the Department of Defense. We are well aware of their STEM education project with the Department of Defense. The principal investigator for that project is our lead for today, Dr. Rebecca Stanley. Dr. Stanley, we're so happy that you and your team are with us today. And at this point, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Stanley to introduce her team and to do the presentation. At the end of the presentation, you'll be asked, there will be an opportunity, rather, to ask questions of RTI. Prior to the end of the presentation and during the presentation, you are able to put your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that they are acknowledged at the conclusion of the presentation. Dr. Stanley, take it away.
Thank you so much, John. We are really delighted to be with you all today. And RTI does a lot of stuff. And so there was no way that I could talk about all of the capabilities that RTI brings to the table by myself. So I brought some friends along with me today. I'm Rebecca Stanley. I work in STEM education. And I brought with me today, and you'll be hearing from Daniela Pineda, Emanuele Sochi, and Lauren Quigley. And so they will each introduce themselves and their areas of work as we get to them. So my first job is to tell you all about RTI. RTI is an independent scientific research institute. As John said, we are headquartered in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, and we have employees and offices all across the world. Our mission is to bring science to the public, to the practitioners, to the point where it matters. So we translate scientific research into action to improve the human condition. At any given time, we have about 3,000 ongoing projects with a wide range of clients across the United States and in countries around the world. As scientists, researchers, and thought leaders, we believe it's essential that we contribute to the advancement of our fields and the larger scientific community. And so we strive to communicate the results of our research to improve understanding of the world and inform decisions that will carry us to a better future. I'm going to click through the next 5 slides pretty quickly to give you a flavor of our work. And then each member of my team that I brought today will share some details. These slides can be provided to you at the end of the session. So You can review the details later as you think about how we might partner together. We have grouped our capabilities into four themes. The first is research and evaluation. The second is data analytics and digital solutions. Then laboratory sciences and engineering. And finally, advisory and implementation. And the presenters today come from each of these areas. And finally, by combining the intellectual talents of leading scientists and experts across these four key areas, we're able to address some of the world's most complex scientific, technical, engineering, and social challenges. We lead projects on behalf of a range of clients that includes government agencies, academia, foundations, and commercial companies. And across these areas of focus, we deliver comprehensive services and capabilities in support of the missions and goals of our clients. I work in education. And so our education group, again, has a lot of different focus areas from early childhood, K-12, post-secondary, and then all the different content systems within them, literacy, mathematics, STEM education, ed tech. We also work in workforce development that kind of bridges this K-12 post-secondary adulthood. We have domestic and international education. We focus on implementation science, research and evaluation, also policy systems and governance. Out of all of these wide focus areas, I work in STEM education. And so I'm going to talk about the STEM education work that I lead, which is funded out of the Department of War. So DoW STEM is inclusive of department-wide efforts. So some of it comes straight from DoW, from the Secretary of War initiatives, but also MDA, NSA, Army, Navy and Marine Corps, Air and Space Force STEM. They all have STEM education initiatives. The Department of War is the largest employer of STEM professionals in the federal space. And so they have a vested interest in a talent pool who's ready to serve their country. And often that service can be in civilian roles, not just in enlisted roles. And so my role is to help support this work and to create that pipeline of talented individuals. Specifically, I lead the Defense STEM Education Consortium, which is a network of STEM-focused outreach organizations, nonprofits, universities, and a couple of for-profit STEM organizations. Membership changes across the life cycle of the consortium, and throughout that time, we have partnered with several HBCUs, including Morgan State University, the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, Bowie State University, and Central State University. All of these organizations are working together to improve the pipeline of STEM talent, but to also help spread the message that you can have an exciting career within the Department of War as a STEM professional without enlisting in the military. We recognize that there are lots of different ways and stages and spaces that students get interested in STEM. And so we want to curate all different types of rich experiences for students to get into a STEM pathway. This slide specifically is talking about Department of War STEM pathways. Our education group at RTI is interested in partnerships across this spectrum in service of students, educators, districts, and states. So we've done similar work partnering with NASA, with the Department of Migrant Education, NSF, IES, and we'd be interested in exploring education partnerships with you. So if education is your focus, reach out and let's explore how we could work together. Next, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague who's going to talk about our public health and social policy work.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you all for hosting us today. My name is Daniela Pineda, and I am within our Public Health Research and Social Policy Department, another area at the Research and Evaluation Capability, so one of the four. Can we go on the next slide? So there's so much. We have a pretty large group of folks trained across multidisciplinary teams. So there's about three different units within my department, and I'll briefly mention what they specialize. And like Rebecca said, this information will be available. But what I want you to take away from this is just the breadth of different topics and different types of partnership opportunities. So within my area of RTI, we have the Center for Media Impact. And so those colleagues are focused on health risk communication, often on innovative methods for evaluating public education campaigns, also for designing campaigns. The center I lead for policy and systems innovation, we do a lot of work that's focused on understanding, evaluating, and building evidence about place-based, large-scale, multi-sectorial efforts. So, if you think about children's Harlem Zone, or if you think about public-private partnership and thinking about, well, what is the evidence that we have? How do we know if those kinds of efforts are effective? So we do a lot of systems evaluation, and also a lot of technical assistance and capacity building support. And then we also have a Center for Engagement Science, and they focus more on using communication science to promote behavior change. So this is particularly relevant within the realm of public health. Our portfolio is largely federal. So when Dr. Rosenthal was talking, I was like, we're in the right room here. But, we have work with CDC, FDA, NIH, EPA. So I'll share a little bit more about a specific project, ARPA-H. But we also just want to highlight that part of what we're focusing on is different parts of the public health infrastructure in the country. And so sometimes that is working with health systems, that is working with states and municipalities. So part of what we spend a lot of time thinking about is how do we bring to bear research and evaluation in these tools and service of public health. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So, oh man, I was trying to just kind of synthesize methods, and I promise you there's a specific example. But this is again kind of just thinking about you all have many interests. So we definitely do research and evaluation and different types of evaluation. But we also do sometimes when we partner with colleges and universities, or we might be co-designing community engaged research, participatory research projects. We might be jointly looking for funding on a particular area of interest. Sometimes we've had partner with partners to evaluate and support some of the work that we've done in the past is like supporting census communication and campaigns, for example. So there's a whole host of methods and in terms of the topics, this is also very high level sampling, but behavioral and mental health is a big area for our team. Also, some of the work that my team does is focused on community resilience, so environmental and climate health and the interaction of community and health and the structural and social determinants of health. Aging and health, maternal health, community engagement and resilience is a big one. So if you can go to the next slide. So just give you a sense of a specific project. Recently, our team led one of the regional technical assistance centers. So the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, Region 4 is Southeast. So EPA divides the country up in 10 regions. So in North Carolina, we're in the Southeast. And so we created a technical assistance model where we partner with 8 different states, and we had a university partner in each of those states. And so the mission of this technical assistance center was to support community-based organizations across the region that were interested in building their capacity to apply for and manage federal resources for select projects that they were interested in that had to do with how they improve their community health and environment. So this is a very unique opportunity in terms of having community voice at the table in the decision about the projects. It wasn't a top-down, like, here's what the federal government thinks you need, but we actually really created an infrastructure to support community-based groups. So some of the focus areas for that technical assistance was, air, water, soil quality, some about, mitigating natural disasters or environmental hazard exposure. So just wanted to highlight that this was such a uh, we're very proud of this work, but also really exemplify all of the ways that we coordinate and, our thought partners and, in the work partners with a lot of universities and colleges. If you can go to the next thing, it is still about this project, but I wanted to underscore one thing that you mentioned in your remarks as well, Rebecca, that RTI is not in academia, but we are very much interested in implying the skills and the skills that we have to improve the human condition. I know that's like a broad statement, but it is very real. In this project, we're especially proud that we supported so many organizations that were in the first time that they were applying for federal funds, but also supporting them and securing more resources. So just kind of particularly proud of the fact that most of those community-based organizations we supported were from underserved communities. So that's just an example, sampling of some work that we've done. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is my looking ahead. There's so many possibilities, and what I want to say here is that this is the first point of connection. We have partnered with other organizations in multiple ways, definitely in coordinating centers, technical assistance, but also creating projects, thinking about research agendas. Sometimes we play a convener role in the field to think through what is needed, like how do you make a research agenda very actionable, tangible. And we also have an internship program at RTI that I think is great because we have the opportunity to get young people interested in doing and being in this kind of environment. Like when I was growing up, and I'll 30 seconds. I'm a first generation graduate, college, high school, everything. And it was those opportunities that I had to get to know and connect with people and figure out that this is an option that made all the difference for me. So I just wanted to highlight that. You'll have our information, we'll be here, but we're always excited to connect and think of ways that we can do good and do it together. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Daniela. Next, we'll hear from Emanuele and analytical sciences.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you everyone for having me here. So before I start, my name is Emanuele Sozzi. You can guess at the end, if you're good with accents, where I am originally from. So full disclosure, I am out at a workshop. I'll talk about it if we have a minute to give you a little bit of an idea of what we do. I am at a workshop. I took a little bit of time. It's a kind of a conference in California. I took a bit of time. I'm in my hotel room. So it's very good connection, but I just want you to know in case you hear anything. Anyway, so my background, and thank you, Daniela, because you, Daniela, touched already some of the points I wanted to touch. You're making my life a little easier. My background is actually in high school. I did a lot of classical studies like Latin, Greek, history, etc. But then I went into science. My background is first environmental engineering. Then I worked after that in finance, in the financial sector a little bit for a few years, but in a management consulting company. But then I wanted to go back into science and public health. So a lot of what I do kind of overlaps with what Daniela does, public health. And then I work with Doctors Without Borders. You may know them. It's an organization. French name is Médecins Sans Frontières in Haiti. During the cholera epidemic, after the earthquake, I did engineering and science. And after that, I moved to the UK. I did my PhD in kind of public health, kind of chemical engineering, really. So my work here, what I do here, I am PFAS program manager. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I may ask you to raise your hand about a few things. So my work is PFAS program manager. PFAS, if a lot of you are already familiar with that. If you are not, we call them also forever chemicals. Some people call them super pollutants. We'll talk a minute about it. So there is a lot to hear in this slide and in the next one to unpack. And I thought a little bit about this presentation, and I decided instead of systematically going through all of that, which may overwhelm a little bit some of you with information, I'd pick a few stories, right? Because I want to give you an idea, very practical, about what we do on a daily basis. And then I hope that you will ask me as many questions as possible. But first of all, before we start, this exercise, let's try to see if it works. I do normally in a physical room when I'm in the physical presence of my audience. Let's try to do it online and see how it works. Do me a favor, okay? So you see a lot of like nerdy science word like chemistry, physics, biology, geology, material science, data science. Raise your hand if you either because of your studies or because of any other experience, you have been in contact with one of those disciplines, or if you have not yet been in contact, but you dream about it and you say, you know what, I would love one day to be a chemist. Just raise your hand. Let's get a little bit of a feeling for the room. And I'm just going to count how many hands. Okay, I see. Okay, Rebecca, Lauren, help me a little bit to count those hands. Okay, and I see Peter has already done it. For now, we have one. Peter, I'm not going to put you on the spot right now. At some point, I hope you will ask me maybe a question later. But so I guess our audience is not yet very much into, necessarily with one or two exceptions, into those, those area of science. So I'm going to give you a couple of stories just to tell you a little bit more about that. I'm a program manager, so I kind of oversee a little bit everything that has to do with PFAS. That doesn't mean I lead every single project. In reality, I lead very, very few of them. There are much smarter than me colleagues that lead a lot of them. I am the one who connects a little bit the dot. I work a lot of expanding RTI. And I noticed that Daniela and Rebecca, you talked a lot about federal work, federal contract, which is correct. Historically, we have done a lot of work, extremely successful with the federal contract. We have another chemistry major. Great. And we'll talk about it, Lauren. But one of my goal and our goal is to to continue working on with federal contracts and federal funding, but also expand into the private sector, the venture capitalists, a lot of innovation, and also nonprofit. Okay. So, I am on the lab science, so a lot of the work I do, it's actually a lot of nerdy work. So if the two folks that raised their hands so far, they will probably love it. A lot of the work in the background when you see science communication on TV or results about any scientific study or remediation. Maybe, Rebecca talked about DOD, DOW remediation work, like cleaning the environment. There is a lot of the work that you as a citizen may not see in the background that has to do a lot with laboratory work. Okay, so a lot of data, a lot of collection of good data. Now, do me another favor. Raise your hand if you have had any interaction in the last, let's say, 5 years with any laboratory. It could be a chemical laboratory. It could be in your personal life. You could go to the doctor and the doctor say, I want to check your cholesterol and see how you're doing. Because last year you were, so raise your hand if you've had any connection. Okay, I see a lot. Okay, now I see more hands. One, two. Okay, it's a lot. It's exploding. Okay, good. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this may overwhelm you a little bit as well, but this slide is kind of a very elegant way to tell you a few of the things Daniela and Rebecca have touched on, a few of the things I touched on. I'm with laboratory sciences and engineering, and basically a few keywords here. Again, we're gonna keep it pretty high level, but you see public policy, and Daniela has touched about it. You see about innovation. I told you about what I'm doing right now. And you see a lot of words like chemistry, physical, chemical, physical properties, life sciences, physical sciences, a lot of engineering. I'm an engineer by training. Okay, so a lot of what our labs do is a laboratory analysis to support the engineering work. And to be fair, we do a fair good amount of engineering work, okay? We support Department of Defense or Department of War to do like a remediation project to clean the soil from like contamination. Checking my time right now. We support, we want to work with not just the federal, but also the state government to do remediation work. But also we do a lot. Before you can remediate something, you have to know where you are. You have to quantify. Yes, that's a great sequel to the next slide. Thank you, Rebecca. So we do, you can't do work as an engineer if someone first has not helped you to assess where you are. Before you tell people, well, we need to remediate because we have a soil contamination. One slide back, please. We have a soil contamination, or we have an environment, or we have a lot of people whose body has been contaminated by this forever chemical. We need to objectively assess where we are, and you need the measurement for that. So a lot of works you see here they may seem like complex, but they are actually they're touching topics that I've already touched a little bit. Environmental monitoring. You need to monitor the environment before you can fix it. And again, pardon me, I'm simplifying a little bit, but you get the point. Toxicology. I want to tell you later, Rebecca will talk a minute about one other project, but I want to tell you a little bit about the work I do with NCCU, North Carolina Central University. Do me a favor, raise your hand if you are with NCCU. Great scientists there, great work. We are working on PFAS, so forever chemicals into your air, not just into your water. You've heard about it, into your food, into your packaging, but into the air. And that's what goes under toxicology and health. And in a minute, I'll let Rebecca talk for a moment, and then I'll tell you a little bit more. Last point I want to touch that. John, I'll pick your question in the Q&A session. I'm monitoring the question. Rebecca, help me a little bit. There is more momentum going in the chat, more coming in. I'll try to monitor them. Help me a little bit with that. I'll try to pick all of them during the Q&A session. One last point I want to tell you, and Lisa is not here. She couldn't make it, but I think I can give you an overview about proficiency testing. Before I was asking, kind of half joking, what are your interaction with laboratories? And a lot of us, they may not be chemists or microbiologists, but they may have used much more chemistry and microbiology than you realize because of your lab analysis, your work, or even like home analysis, because you want to know if your paint is dangerous or you are getting an allergy at home because of some sort of contamination. You have used a lot of those lab already. Now, one really important detail, and this is where I'm going to stop in a minute and pass to Rebecca, is that you want those laboratories to give you top quality data. You don't want, and that happens all the time. That has happened. We have seen it in our family, in our personal life. You don't want the doctor to scare you and tell you that you have a medical issue, and then to realize 6 months later, and please raise your hand if you have heard any of those stories, even anecdotally, and then you hear 6 months later, sorry, you were perfectly fine. It was a measurement error, right? You don't want that. And if that happens, it's because of that little thing on the left that is called proficiency testing. Proficiency testing is a very nerdy but super important science that goes into making sure that different laboratories all across the country and around the world, they have top standards and they have more or less comparable standards of quality. Rebecca, is it a good time to pass it to you?
Yes, thank you. And the slides were jumping around over here. I was not trying to rush you. You have plenty of time. You're
No,
doing
you're
great.
fine. No, I got it. No worries. No worries. I'm checking my time and trying to be diligent with that. No, I
Okay.
understand.
So I'm going to jump in and talk about a project where we combined some analytical chemistry work and education. So this was lead in drinking water at North Carolina Child Care Centers, piloting a participatory science-based testing strategy was an RTI research project that became the foundation for the broader Clean Water for Carolina Kids and then later Clean Water for U.S. Kids programs. So the project engaged students, educators, and community members in the scientific process through hands-on research, data collection, and collaborative problem solving. The study demonstrated that lead testing could be scaled efficiently by training child care center staff to collect water samples themselves rather than relying on site visits by scientists. So RTI developed and validated a scalable approach that empowered child care providers to collect the drinking water samples for lab analysis. And then we combined advanced trace metal analysis, environmental health research, and community engagement to identify lead exposure risks, to inform state policy, and expand testing to thousands of childcare and school facilities nationwide. Then we developed project-based curricula and professional development for teachers to use in their classrooms to teach students about lead in their drinking water and to teach students to collect samples and kind of think about the socioeconomics around who has lead in their drinking water and what are the ethical issues and things that we could consider as we are testing for contaminants in our environment. And back over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, now do not panic. There is a ton of information in this slide, but I promise I'm gonna make it simple, and I'm gonna kind of make it into a story a little bit. This slide is about the CARES Lab. The CARES Lab, I told you before, is a partnership between NCCU, North Carolina Central University, and RTI us. It's called Center for Applied Research in Environmental Sciences, CARES, and it's a bunch of us, a lot of folks much smarter than me. I would say a bunch of us very smart nerds, although I feel they are much smarter than me when it's time to open the lab and turn on the machines that do work into different fields, very much related to toxicology. You see some words like here, like screening of multiple test compounds and cell line, investigation of targets, pathways. So this is a very complex way to say before you can tell that one compound that is in your food is dangerous, you have to quantify that. And dangerous or non-dangerous per se doesn't mean anything. You can find pretty much everything everywhere if you search deep enough. The question is how much? When does a compound in your food start being dangerous? Okay. Now, Rebecca, can we make it a little more interactive? Are you okay? Those things work very much into a room. Give me a thumb up if you're okay with that, because I may ask a question to the audience. Are you okay? Yes, I see a thumb up. Okay. Lauren, John Rosenthal, please, the same. Okay. I don't want to scare anybody, but I want to ask. I saw there were some. They were actually speaking up a lot. The chat. I saw there were some answers from. Okay, so let me see. Oh, give me a second. Sorry. Yes. Who? I'm just trying to keep up with the chat. But basically, I wanted to ask you who has ever heard about in vivo versus in vitro. Let me help you a little bit, and then let's see if there is someone brave enough to raise her or his hand and try to give me an answer, and I'll help you to construct the answer, I promise. I'm going to help you a little bit. You may know, and if you do, raise your hand, that the amount of compounds that are regulated in food in the US versus the EU is very, very different. Has any of you ever Googled that? If yes, raise your hand. If not, I'll let you know. But basically, and I'll keep monitoring the chat, but basically, in order to be able to say that that compound, like red dye or anything that you don't want to have in your food, in order to be able to say that a certain concentration starts becoming trouble for you as a human or your pet, you need to measure, you need to quantify that. Now, you know, because you know, you have heard it, that sometimes when the scientists tell you, you have to be careful with aspartame or with saccharin. You have to don't go beyond a certain level or antibiotics. It's because you have heard it. They've measured in mice, right? They tell you, well, we measured that in mice because checking it on human becomes really complex, and maybe something we're going to do it later, but in a very different way. And we know that after certain concentration, you can see the mice not sleeping anymore, making it up. Okay, don't repeat exactly what I'm saying. It's not that simple, but that's you get the idea. Uh, does anyone want to guess? Am I talking about in vitro or am I talking about in vivo? Who wants to help me a little bit? I'm gonna wait 5 seconds and then I'm gonna answer my own question myself, okay? 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna answer the question myself. I was talking about the in vivo, okay? That's the in vivo model. Now, the point is that I am very passionate about mice and rats rights, animal rights, and I think that I understand that in order to be able to save lives, you need to have mice and rats and other models to assess certain toxicity before you do it on human, because you can't do it on human really, or you can't do it in such a simple way. And so, but I'm very passionate about that. I think we should minimize the pain and the sufferance of any animal we use for testing. So, there is another way of doing it that it doesn't substitute it, but it gives a lot of data that can help us minimize the number of mice or rats or animal that we use for our testing. And by the way, side notes, there is a poster at RTI that says that someone calculated that a mice and rat and mice model, the slides are off, by the way, Rebecca, so that you know, but that's okay. Mice and rats, like lab rats, have saved more life than 911. And that's great to know, right? It means we do this for purpose, but still we want to minimize that. And by the way, working on mice and rats in the lab is really hard work and it's also expensive. And that's called in vitro work. Okay. In vitro work means we, before we go into the animal model, we call it, we test on cell line. Now, it will take me far too long to explain you exactly how a cell line works, but in very simple terms, we take, for example, some human or some animal cells, we grow them in the labs. It's a much simpler model, but it's enough to test on a known, really it's a living thing, but it's not a living animal. Test on them what is the toxicity of certain compounds before you as a human are exposed to that. If you have time, and this may be a good way to move on, if you have time at some point tonight or next week, just Google about compounds tracked in the US versus EU. You will know you will learn a lot of interesting stuff, and maybe you will get excited about this kind of work. If you do, talk to me because we are looking for a lot of uh, nerdy folks that are excited by this type of work in the lab. Now, I want to close it by giving you like going back up 20,000 feet view. Again, there is a lot to unpack here, but actually you already know some of those information because I mentioned them. I'm just going to help you to identify them. If you look on the right, maybe you want to move your cursor, Rebecca, if you want. On the top right, you see environmental remediation work. That is the work I was talking about. We want to do with DoD and other companies to remediate, to clean your water and soil underground that has been regrettably, unfortunately contaminated. What you see on the left is PFAS. We have assessed, and you can find it online actually. If you can find online about the presence of PFAS in fish, in beer, in milk, drinking water, soil, etc., etc. Those are things we do for a living in the lab, and we give those data to practitioners, engineers, folks like Rebecca or Daniela or others to continue the work down the line. And then I don't want to get too nerdy. I think I got nerdy enough, right? So we don't need to talk too much about the organic fluorine. I can tell you a few things about the microplastic. You may have read it in the news. Besides forever chemicals, what I do, there is also the microplastic issue and more and more. Now, this is a good way to wrap it up. If you kind of I don't want to say dream a career in science because it's more complex than that, but if you have an interest for that, if you think this should be a good place to look for a job one day, if you want to learn more about it, just ask a question later or reach out to me. How are we doing, Rebecca? Shall we move on and close it at this point? What do you
Yes.
think?
Thank you. We're going to move on to Lauren next.
Hi, everybody. Great to meet you. I was really excited when Rebecca invited me to participate. So kind of like building off of Daniela and Emanuele's trends. So I actually was playing, what was the major? The physics major in undergrad, but I am a two-time HBCU graduate. So graduate from Spelman College, where I did my physics bachelor's degree. Then I have my master's at Norfolk State University. So I've, always been a part of and really truly a product of HBCU science research, and I've really, I was really excited to again join this conversation with you all today. But I'm going to give you a brief overview for my Center for Advanced Analytics and Visualization at RTI. I've only been at RTI for about 4 months now, but I've dove right in, and I'm really excited to one, connect with my colleagues here and with all of you as I start out building this exciting research program. So our center is really focused on AI, data science, design, and engineering. And we really are focused on human-centered insights and products across lots of different domains. So if we go to the next slide, we can just, our capability areas are pretty broad. Similarly, we work across government, private, and foundation clients, lots of collaborations with universities. And our primary capabilities are in these 3 areas. So applied AI and data science across lots of different sectors. Data visualization and reporting. So we do some work like for the DSEC program and other parts of RTI around data visualization and reporting, digital project management, geospatial sciences, software and web development, and user experience and design. So we really are focused on, how do we as regular everyday people actually benefit from these technologies and understand advanced technology and use it in our day-to-day. So our work across our center is really focused on applying technology approaches like agile product design, human-centered design, which you've probably heard quite a bit about. And our team is really focused on client-centered deliveries and responsible AI. So a lot of my background has been in the responsible AI space, both in education and in advanced research in the tech industry. But we really value that, especially as AI is becoming more pervasive in our everyday lives. So I will tell you, I'm going to selfishly tell you a little bit more about my research program in human development and performance. So if we can go on to the next slide. And this is a new area for us. RTI has a huge history in education, social sciences, and there have been for a few years lots of conversations around AI, how it's impacting humans, how it's impacting our educational systems, how it impacts the workforce. And my research program is specifically focused on that. But really for me, leveraging and focusing on human agency, dignity has been one of my primary focuses. So as AI is becoming pervasive, how do we individually as humans get to maintain our dignity, our engagement, our interests, and excitement around learning, around the work that we do, around exploration and curiosity? And then also, how does AI impact our performance, both metacognitively, socially, et cetera? So within this program, there are 3 areas. And if we can go on to the next slide, there's 3 research areas that I'm building out. So first is ed tech and learning. So we do have quite a few different educational technology solutions that we've developed. A lot of that work has been in the international space, but also we do a lot of work domestically in K-12 education and educational products. But as we're not entering deeply in this AI era, thinking about what are the best ways to develop ed tech solutions that leverage AI appropriately, safely for the learning environment. Data and AI literacy is something I've been very passionate about. So what are the ways that we can support those efforts? And especially when we're thinking about education, how folks can continue to be self-regulated learners and workers and doers with AI technologies that are enabling and sometimes potentially disabling. So thinking about and building research in that area. Another area that I'm really actually the most excited about is our affirmative futures with AI. And this is, again, really focused on dignity and learning and labor. What are the ways that AI can be leveraged as a resource, but also, you know, prioritizing and centering humans over the technology, really focusing on human well-being. And this work is really important to me. And the thread that you notice is participatory and community-based research. So that's a huge part for me around this affirmative future with AI. Is doing participatory AI instead of developing solutions and implementing them and forcing them on people. How do we, with community, with partners, design the AI solutions that are most affirming, most useful, that are enriching without them being harmful and detractive from our daily lives. And then, of course, in the generative AI and agents world, thinking about research in human and AI collaboration, again, those issues around metacognition, how we're learning, how we're thinking, how does using your favorite generative AI chat tool impacting, your work. It might speed up your work, but you also might miss some things. So what are some better ways that we can develop these tools to be useful to support human cognition and also the impacts of AI on human and social behavior? So this is the exciting work that I get to lead. And I had planned for short slides. So my last slide is just really around collaboration opportunities. As I'm building out this research program, we are really currently in the throes of some really exciting work. One is developing a math model, a math AI tutor model. We're hoping to work with K-12 communities and parents to decide what does an AI model that acts as a tutor, what would that look like for your K-12 student and family? We're also working on a large national proposal around AI workforce development, readiness, and literacy, and engaging small business and emerging priority areas. So if there are folks that are interested in that area, definitely let me know. Of course, the EdTech products and solutions. AI models are important, but evaluation is even more important. So how do we determine if it's appropriate or right, or what a good model should and can do for a specific use case? So that's an area of work that we are building out and look to collaborate. Education advisory and learning with AI. We have some exciting things coming out. Probably, I want to say next month. Hopefully, it'll be next month. But some advice and guidance for educators on, especially post-secondary educators, on the use of AI in your classroom. How do you deal with your students having access to AI, and how does that change how you do assessment in your learning environments? And then, of course, like responsible AI frameworks, tools, and governance. So I plan to be super short, so we have some good time for conversation, but really excited to connect with you all and would love to collaborate if there's some areas that are resonant for you.
Thanks, Lauren. My contact information is here. I'm going to serve as air traffic controller. And if you reach out, I will help you connect to someone at RTI who matches your interest. And I'm going to stop sharing screen now and we're going to answer some questions.